This presentation is devoted to technology and ethics. Computer ethics are the moral guidelines that govern the use of computers, mobile devices, and information systems. In this presentation, we will be discussing computer ethics as it relates to information accuracy, intellectual property rights, green computing, information privacy, and codes of ethics. Anyone can create a website, author a blog, or store files in a publicly accessible manner. One should not assume that all information published on the web is accurate or true. Individuals or organizations providing access to information on the web may not be the creator of the information. Information that is accessible on the web can easily be altered and republished. Information includes such things as photos, graphics, music, as well as text. There is always the question about whether or not altering information is right or wrong. The discussion on ethics starts with intellectual property. Intellectual property refers to unique and original works such as ideas, inventions, art, writings, processes, company and product names, and logos. Intellectual property rights are those rights to which creators are entitled to their work. A copyright protects any tangible form of expression, and digital rights management is a strategy designed to prevent the illegal distribution of movies, music, and other digital content. A common copyright violation is the illegal download of or copy of software, music, and movies. Another term that you may come across when discussing intellectual property rights is fair use, which is a part of copyright law that permits use of parts of copyrighted material for purposes of commentary and criticism. The next topic in ethics is green computing, which involves reducing the electricity and environmental waste while using computers, mobile devices, and related technologies. So, of course, using technology in an environmentally aware manner is an ethical consideration. One of the biggest ethical considerations in technology surrounds information or data privacy. Data privacy relates to how information should be handled based on its importance. Earlier in the term, we discussed our digital footprints. The more we interact online, the more of our personal information becomes accessible and stored by online entities. Think about how much and what kind of information you would share with a stranger that you meet in person. What kinds of things would you not share? Things like social security numbers, health records, financial data, banks and accounts, credit card numbers, full name, address, phone number, and date of birth. Now think about how much of that same information you routinely share online via social media or online vendors, banking institutions, etc. A data breach could mean that this sensitive information could get into the hands of folks who could misuse it. We store an incredible amount of very sensitive personal information on our computing and mobile devices. Identity theft happens when someone steals personal information to commit fraud. According to the Department of Justice, in 2016, 17.7 million people aged 16 and older became victims of identity fraud. That's about 1 in 15 people. You have a better odds of being a victim of identity theft than getting hit by a car or winning the lottery. Therefore, it's important to take steps, like those on this slide, to protect our data. Ask some questions before giving out your data. Take some very simple, basic steps to protect some of your very personal information. Information about you can be stored in a database when you do things like fill out a printed or online form, create a social networking profile, or registering a product warranty. Remember those digital footprints we talked about in the beginning of the class? This is how you leave them. A cookie is one tool that websites can use to collect information about you. It is a small text file that a web server stores on your computer. Websites use cookies for a variety of reasons, including targeting targeting you for advertisements, tracking how often you use a site, and storing your name or password. When discussing ethical digital behavior, we also have to consider criminal behavior. Phishing involves tricking victims out of information. These can include deactivation scares, look-alike websites offering free stuff, notice of beneficiary status, and my all-time favorite, my car warranty is about to expire. I can assure you that my car's warranty expired nearly 10 years ago. So, phishing obviously is a scam. And with clickjacking, an object that can be clicked on a website oftentimes contains malicious programming designed to steal additional information. Social engineering is defined as gaining unauthorized access to or obtaining confidential information by taking advantage of trusting human nature of some victims and the naivete of others. This can be a non-technical way of tricking people into breaking normal safety protocols, but hackers psychologically manipulate their mark into performing action or divulging confidential information. There's always that IRS scam that comes back in the news every year, where a caller tries to convince you to pay a fictitious debt to the IRS. Young people and senior citizens are often targets of these social engineering scams. Ethics is always just a little nebulous. It is hard sometimes to distinguish between whether something should be done or not done, that's the ethical question, or whether or not it can be done, which is a legal question. To keep people on the straight and narrow, some ethical considerations have become codified into law both on the state and federal level. In the higher education world, there are 3 federal laws that apply. First is FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1973. Then there's HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, and Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act of 1999. All 3 laws in this slide protect the privacy of individuals by restricting what and when information can be released with or without the individual's consent. FERPA protects the rights of students and their academic records. HIPAA protects patients and their medical records. And Gramm-Leach-Bliley protects financial records. And because colleges help students with loans and provide financial advice about financial aid, they fall under this act as well. Another aspect of ethics in technology is the concept of expectation of privacy when using the computers or networking resources of an employer, educational institution, or a public resource such as a public library. You have no expectation of privacy when using computers or computing technology that are not your own. This includes hardware, software, and connectivity to online resources. Using a public resource may allow you some amount of anonymity, but not privacy. To ensure ethical behavior while using institutional resources, most businesses and educational institutions have technology usage guides that spell out exactly what is and is not allowed when using the entity's computing equipment and resources. These guides also indicate what happens when the usage guides are violated. Examples of codes of conduct could be the Marist Code of Conduct. These links will take you to the codes of conduct for the college. In addition to the conduct that students are expected to adhere to while living at the college, there's also academic codes of conduct. As a good amount of research is now conducted online or with digital tools and resources, the ethical discussion on technology includes things like plagiarism and copyright. Marist adopts the position of the Modern Language Association Handbook, New York, 1977, paragraph 6, that defines plagiarism as something that may take the form of repeating another's sentences as your own, adopting a particularly apt phrase as your own, paraphrasing someone else's line of thinking in the developing of a thesis as though it were your own. In short, to plagiarize is to give the impression that you have written or thought something that you have actually borrowed from another. Accessing another student's computer file with or without consent also constitutes plagiarism. For information on copyright use and compliance, please see the library's Copyright Zone. We've talked about the ethical usage of computers and computing technology. But what happens if the ethical use of computers is not followed? Well, in an educational setting, it could be the result of a failure in a class, or it can be expulsion from school. On the job, it might be sanctioning or getting fired. You could also be arrested and or convicted for a criminal offense. These links go to some stories where just such things happened. In one of them, a jury orders a student to pay $675,000 for illegally downloading music in 2009. 2 students were kicked off a semester at sea for plagiarism in 2008. And the FBI shuts an offshore file share locker in 2012. So there are consequences when ethical behavior is not followed with regard to computers and computing technology. You can't have a discussion on ethics without including the topic of what to do about objectionable material, because anyone can put anything on the internet. In the U.S., the concept of free speech with some notable exceptions, for example, child pornography, allows for this. Still, there will be information available that will offend various members of the internet viewing population, or will be inappropriate in certain circumstances. Filtering software limits what can be accessed and viewed. Business use content filtering to limit what employees can access using company resources. Schools and parents filter what children can access online by using web filtering software. To conclude this discussion, I've included some resources that can help students stay on the straight and narrow ethically. The first is the Marist Writing Center resources page. Next is the Purdue University Online Writing Lab. And lastly is the LIU Post citation style for research papers. And that concludes this presentation.